Hello everyone, it's Jimmy James 59 here, and I have an AOE2 tier list video that I'm very excited to share with you all today. We're going to be looking at the Cavalry class of units in 1v1 gameplay settings with an emphasis at the mid-ELO level. Going to talk about that more in a sec. I'll just say a couple things from the outset. First, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. And I'm going to put a link to other tier lists I've done in the description below. I've been really impressed with the insightful comments that have been put forward in the comment sections of those tier lists. And so I want to really encourage that here as well, in that if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, feel free to share your thoughts and keep it civil, which everybody's done a great job at doing that here in the past for my other tier lists. So I felt very welcomed doing this, and I want to make you feel welcomed as well, because I've actually gone through, especially on this one, I have gone through this tier list a few times. I have my own opinion. It's just my opinion in the end, but even I don't necessarily agree with my opinion on every given day, and so I'm arguing with myself a lot too. So it's this is a work in progress, and that's something that is important to consider. Um, the point of these tier lists is to help out your gameplay, and knowing and having a mental sort of structure of where different civilizations rank between one another, and not just if you're playing a civilization, but knowing where your opponent's civilization ranks compared to your cavalry. That's very good knowledge, and the idea is to just help us figure out this game better, learn the game better, and play it. So that's what we're all about on this channel, having this strong work ethic to improve and play this game. But now we're focusing at a mid-ELO level, and I actually want to take us through that. There's a little bit of a setup here, but I want to talk about the characteristics of mid-ELO gameplay. There's a lot of discussion about what mid-ELO is, and I'm defining it as between 1200 and 1700, and I'll tell you why. The average ELO in Age of Empires 2 is 1000. However, players who start off at the game and are brand new also start at 1000. So at the 1000 ELO, you have some players that have hundreds of thousands of hours of experience, and they've just, taken a bit longer to progress through the game and get back up to a 1000 ELO. And then you have people who have just started out and don't know anything and would get crushed by a 1000 ELO player with 100 games of experience, let's say. I think at the area where you start to see a more defined and therefore comparable set of players is when you start to get to about the 1200, that 1200 range. That's where you start to see it. And in reality, these characteristics and what's going to be in this tier list applies to players who are at a lower ELO level than this, and maybe even at a higher level than what we're looking at as well. But we're going to focus here. And so mid-ELO gameplay, and the reason we're focusing on it in this way is that mid-ELO games tend to play out a little differently than games at a higher level, or even a lower level for that matter. For instance, mid-ELO players often have a really excellent academic knowledge of the game. They keep up with the patch updates. They understand the civilizations. However, when it comes to some aspects of performance, such as optimizing the efficiency of your economy or adapting to new situations, mid-ELO players struggle a bit more with that, right? They have a lot of strong points, and often mid-ELO gameplay can be extremely aggressive. But as a game goes on, it just tends to get sloppier, right? Mid-ELO players often have pretty good micro, but can struggle with some of the more advanced concepts, such as doing micro, right, moving units around when, say, multiple mangonels are present, having multiple control groups or armies, just general multitasking and decision making, things like understanding when to make certain transitions, taking fights that are unwinnable, and recognizing when to back off and disengage from a fight or engage. Those kind of things. They're things that come with time and practice, and hopefully this tier list will help accelerate that kind of growth and momentum. So these characteristics do have implications on how we're going to think about gameplay and the tier list, and that economic bonuses are obviously going to move civilizations up a tier list, but they're not going to be deterministic, right? You often hear pro players say that Vikings, for instance, because of their economic bonus, getting free wheelbarrow, free handcart, that they are a top 3 1v1 Arabia civilization. Well, pro players are able to optimize and take full advantage of that economic bonus in a way that mid-elo players might not. It will certainly help, but I think what it often does more at a mid-elo level is it tends to mask deficiencies in gameplay, right? As much as it helps. So economic bonus is helpful, but they're not deterministic. Well, mono unit compositions that can be masked throughout the game are preferred in this. So, if you need to make a technology switch to a different unit outside of the cavalry class, let's say, you need to switch to cavalry archers, which are not going to be included in cavalry, or say arbalist, that's not going to be as highly regarded as, say, being able to mass knights from, Castle Age onward and stay on them. We're going to reward civilizations in the tier list that are capable of both early aggression and that have strong late game attributes. And smooth gameplay here, right, provides a lot more utility than adjusting build orders and trying to really wrench that economic efficiency. You gotta make changes and adapt. No, smooth gameplay is going to be prioritized. Now what this does, right, for cavalry in particular, this is what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the viability of the knight line foremost, right? And viability here is defined as strength times affordability. Those are our two concepts. How well does your unit perform, and how much does it cost? So we're going to start with the knight line, then look at the scout line, right? In the same way. If this were a team game tier list video, we might emphasize in the knight line actually having paladin. Paladin often doesn't make its presence felt in 1v1 games as much. Now, it still can help, and there are still some civilizations that can get to it more easily. And if you can get to Paladin, it's a strong unit. But again, it costs a lot, and so we are going to, I'm using this as an example of where viability really comes in, right? And so when we're going to think about viability of the knight line, and this is something to keep in mind, you don't just want to think about how many upgrades a unit has. Instead, what you want to do is I think you want to think about it in terms of how well does the unit perform in each age, right? How well is it doing in feudal age? How well is it doing in castle age? How well is it doing in imperial age, right? That is the way to think more about viability and assess units. And so we'll have some examples of that as we go on. So we've got knight scouts. Does a civilization have camels available? We have economic bonuses that increase aggression, right? So Dark Age economic bonuses, or economic bonuses in the mid to late game that allow production to be sustained, right? In order to build a mass of units. We're going to look at cavalry unique units and then complementary units. By this, I really mean trash units for the most part. We'll talk about that as we get there. So with that being said, right, we're just going to go back in, bring our tier list back up, break out my notes, hydrate as everyone should do. Okay, and let's get going. Now, first we're going to talk about the Aztecs. Now, here's the thing about Aztecs, right? Aztecs have this way of forcing you to make adaptations to your gameplay because they're a very strong civilization. So, for instance, when you're making a tier list, what Aztecs tend to do is they force you to do things on the fly, right? They force you to make changes on the fly here, and that's a very powerful thing that they can do, right? They force you to do things like make F tiers, because why? Aztecs don't get cavalry units, so they're going to wind up in the F tier. But even when you're in a tier list video, Aztecs are still causing problems. Wow, what a civilization, just not for cavalry. Okay, moving on now to the Berbers, right? Berbers are going to find themselves in the A tier, right? Berber stable units, right, have discounts in Castle Age and Imperial Age, minus 15%, minus 20% respectively. That's a really nice way to get lots of cavaliers or lots of camels on the field. You do miss Paladin, but again, having that cost-effective knight line for 1v1s might actually be a better deal, and so that's a fantastic bonus. You also get hand cannoneers to counter enemy halberdiers. That can be nice. You have fully upgraded elite skirmishers that can perform that same role but in a more cost-effective manner. And you also have the Genitor, a mounted skirmisher that in theory can also counter halberdiers and those kind of units and do it in a more mobile way. But Genitors are a bit more expensive. You know, they can see some situational use there. They're typically billed as a skirmisher that can keep up with your army mobility, and that is important, but perhaps more at the margins than anything else. The real thing that's keeping Berbers out of the S tier is that you don't have a feudal bonus to complement your scout opening. Your discount on stable units only comes in Castle Age, so Berbers are pretty generic in feudal age doing scout openings. You do have faster moving villagers. It does marginally affect the farming rate, but that bonus is a lot more useful for dealing with enemy raids and making sure that your villagers escape from enemy units. So not really helping out a cavalry class consideration. All right, next up we have the Bohemians, and Bohemians are gonna go into the D tier. In general, the cavalry is just pretty weak. Missing the last armor upgrade, bloodlines. I don't believe that they get husbandry even. So this is pretty awkward here. You do have a decent economy, right, with free stone and gold mining bonuses. Bohemian economy could be okay, and that helps out a bit. But really, this is all a very marginal case, I think. You do have hand cannoneers available to you if you research chemistry in the Castle Age, to deal with pikes, right? But that's a very expensive unit composition to get to. Not a lot of civilizations can pull that off. So, yeah, this is going to have to be the D tier. All right, now going to the Britons, and we are going to stay in the D tier, but I will say Britons are probably at the top of the D tier, right? And my rationale for this is going to come back to thinking about how the units play in particular ages. So, Briton Cavaliers and light cavalry, because you don't get Hussar and you don't get Paladin, you're only missing bloodlines. So, you're actually not that bad in a lot of ways, but you got to think about how it plays in each age, right? In Imperial Age, your cavalry is going to fall off. In Castle Age, because you miss bloodlines, you're going to be behind civilizations that have bloodlines. So, and even in Feudal Age, if you're opening scouts, you do have an economic bonus that can kind of help you do a quick scouts play with the faster consuming of sheep. But it's because you lack bloodlines, doing any kind of extended Feudal Age where you're focusing on scouts can get really difficult because bloodlines is a very important upgrade. So you got to put them in the D tier, but Britain cavalry units do have some situational uses. So you just have to be very careful about when you deploy them. All right, next up we have the Bulgarians. Bulgarians are going to find themselves into A tier. I actually think there is a lot to like about Bulgarians. I would say from the jump, you have a really unique opening you can do where you go for a fast 21 pop men-at-arms aggression with scouts that can be very difficult to deal with. So in this case, you're following up men-at-arms with scouts, and that can be very nice. Your blacksmith upgrades are minus 50% food costs, so it makes it very easy to get your attack upgrades and your armor upgrades. You have fully upgraded cavaliers, fully upgraded hussars, and not only that, but your Castle Age technology stirrups increases the attack rate of stable units by 33%. So you have some of the strongest hussars in terms of dealing damage in the game, and you probably have a top 5 hussar. And not only that, but your knights in late Castle Age, Cavalier in early Imperial Age are probably some of the strongest in the game. So, very good cavalry there. You do have the Conic as a unique unit. It's a cavalry unit that then, when it dies, it gets up and it fights as infantry. That can be strong in theory, but they take a lot of upgrades, and oftentimes that can be very expensive to get to. I think the real thing helping out the Bulgarians in terms of complementary units is you have two-handed swordsmen, but you don't have to pay for any of your swordsman line upgrades, and you get them for free. So it's very easy if somebody just goes full halberdier on you to slow down a knight push in Imperial Age, you can very easily crank out two-handed swordsmen that also have the Bagains technology in Imperial Age that gives them a lot of melee armor and makes them even more effective trash-killing units. So going something like two-handed swordsman and hussar in late game can be a very, very strong move for Bulgarians, and that's enough to put them into A tier. Borderline S tier, I would say. You're lacking the economic bonus to really sustain unit production. The food discount on the blacksmith is great and allows you to get upgrades, but when it comes to sustaining lots and lots of units, you can fall behind just a little bit. But honestly, it's fantastic. The one economic bonus you're really getting with Bulgarians is that your town centers cost a bit less stone, maybe allowing you to boom a little bit quicker, but that means you're spending more resources on villagers, and that can cut into your knight production. So you got to be careful about that. Still an A-tier civilization, very good. All right, next up on our list are the Burgundians, and I'm going to put Burgundians in the S tier here. Look, your stable technologies have a minus 50% discount to research. That is quite good, and it's very important for researching Paladin in the late game. But not only that, you can actually research Cavalier in Castle Age at a discount. So as soon as you hit Imperial Age, you can start that Paladin research, and the cost discount on it is 50%. That's very good, and it can allow you to get to Paladin quickly. Your Paladins are missing bloodlines, but for what you're paying to get them, you're still getting a unit that has 20 more HP than a Cavalier with bloodlines. You are still getting a unit that has +2 attack compared to Cavaliers. And you get that 7 pierce armor, so you're going to have 1 more pierce armor than a Cavalier as well. And if you've watched my video on skirmishers, you will know that archers fight at the margins, right? Go check out that video. I'm going to put a link to my previous tier list in the description below because I tend to reference them and compare them to in this tier list. They often come up, and so I would take a look at those. But right, having that 7 pierce armor is massive for fighting against archers, especially when you don't have bloodlines. So, and not only that, but the Burgundians have incredible economic bonuses. You can research economic upgrades at a discount and an age earlier. That's fantastic. Your Castle Age technology allows your farms to make gold. Your team bonus is that your relics also produce food. This is a civilization that seems like it was created solely for the purpose of being able to spam paladins at a fairly constant rate into the late game in a 1v1 setting. So, very strong. And also they have very good hand cannoneers if you want to go, against halberdiers to pair them with your paladins. And this is one of the few civilizations that has an economy good enough to where you might be able to pull off that double gold composition late. So Burgundians, I put them into S tier. I would say the only real weakness that they have is that getting all those upgrades out forces you to play a bit more defensively. So if you're up against Burgundians, the success that I've had facing them is to pressure them early and just not allow them to get to those compositions as easily. All right, for what it's worth, of course. All right, next up we have the Burmese. Burmese are going to go into the B tier. Burmese are a really interesting cavalry civilization. You have fully upgraded Cavalier and Hussar, and since the most recent patch, your Imperial Age technology allows your cavalry units to do +5 bonus damage against archers. Now, this, I don't think we've seen it that much in practice, and I know I haven't experienced it a lot because I don't run into Burmese a lot on the ladder at a mid-elo sort of setting. But what I will say, though, is that if we compare it, say, to Persian knights having +2 bonus against archers, I can imagine this being very strong, and Burmese are a civ because they miss even the Castle Age archer armor upgrades. Burmese are pretty vulnerable to archers traditionally, so this technology fills a really nice role for the civilization. Now, you also, giving them more kudos, you also have really good elephants. Now, elephants can take up a lot of economy. They can be pretty easily countered by monks. So we're going to give elephants a little bit of a bump. I don't think it puts them quite into the A tier. And the Burmese economy, you do get your wood upgrades for free, but since the wood upgrades are researched so early anyways, it's not a bonus that's allowing you to sustain production in the mid game in a way that's going to help you turbo into units. So I think Burmese are a healthy B tier, definitely not in C tier, right? Now the Byzantines, on the other hand, right, we're going to entrench them squarely into C tier. Look, Byzantines get paladins, they get hussars, that's great, but you lack bloodlines and blast furnace, so you're not doing the attack and you don't have quite the durability. And that also means in Castle Age, your knights and light cavalry are also going to lag behind your peers. You don't really have the economy to turbo into, say, a fast paladin kind of move. The faster Imperial Age discount that the Byzantines get is a lot more helpful for going for, say, a fast Imperial Arbalist play. You need a lot of economy to get the cavalry upgrades, and so the faster imp, if you do it trying to go for that, you probably just won't have enough villagers and resources to do what you want. I will say they do have some nice complementary units in hand cannons and cheap skirmishers and halberdiers that can help your army out. Your hussars are pretty reasonable too, but overall, this is a C tier cavalry civ. All right, next up we have the Celts. And Celts are going to go into the D tier. You have Paladin and Hussar, but you're missing Bloodlines. You're missing the last armor upgrade, which means that you have, especially for Paladin, an expensive unit that you can't keep alive. And if Paladin's going to be useful for you in a 1v1, you got to have a way either to replace it or keep it alive. And you're just going to find that very difficult to do with Celts. So your skirmishers are really bad. So to take out, say, enemy halberdiers, you're probably not going to have the power. It's just Paladins. There's situational usages, right? If you watch, I believe it's the Hidden Cup 4 finals. It's very possible. I don't want to spoiler alert that tournament is probably close to a year old now. But there's a very good game where Celt Paladins make an appearance, and I will leave the result of that in suspense, and the player who uses it in suspense, just because of the nature of Hidden Cup. But shout out to that player. He's a very good player and has done a lot for the Age of Empires community. So, right, but he hasn't done enough to get the Celts out of D tier, unfortunately. They're going to stay there. All right, next up we have the Chinese. Chinese, now this may surprise some people, but I got to put Chinese into the A tier. Look, you get fully upgraded Cavalier, fully upgraded heavy camels, fully upgraded light cavalry, right? That alone right there would be enough to get you into the B tier. But that's not all, right? Chinese have some really nice economic bonuses. I'm not going to consider so much their very awkward start, because I think at a mid-elo level of gameplay, often players don't have that start down, and so instead of getting, say, 2 villagers ahead, you may only get 1, if that, and it also may leave you open to early aggression. So I'm not going to consider that. I'm just going to consider that sort of neutral bonus here. But what really helps Chinese are their economy bonuses of having cheaper technologies as you go through the ages. That helps you out getting your upgrades. Most of the cavalry technologies you're going to be researching, you can research in the Castle Age. So, and then an Imperial Age, that's going to be helping you out an awful, awful lot. And I think that that's enough to get you into A tier. Really helps smooth out getting your units fully upgraded. All right, next up we have the Cumans, and I think that a lot of folks are sleeping on Cumans right now, and I'm going to tell you why. In Feudal Age, well, let me just say, as a civilization bonus, you miss husbandry, but you increase your speed of your stable units as each age. So what this means in practice, again, thinking about what your units do in the ages, it means that your scouts are faster than enemy scouts. In Feudal Age, your stable units have basically husbandry for free in Castle Age, so you're not actually missing the upgrade. In fact, you get it for free and you don't have to pay for it. Is the way to think about it. And in Imperial Age, your stable units are quicker than other comparable stable units. So what that does is it means that you can force fights that you want to take. You can disengage from fights that you don't want to take. But not only that, your stables only cost 100 wood as of the latest patch. You have Paladin that are extra fast, so you have really powerful units that can run away from fights they don't want to take, and then take out enemies that can't run away from them. You have the Camel Rider available to you. You don't get heavy camel, but if you're on the back foot, say going for a 2-town center boom, and the enemy has knights out, and you have a military to deal with, hey, you can go camels, right? And try to climb back into the game. You want to transition away from it, but it is a nice option. For a civilization that also has great paladins, it's very good to have. You have a nice economic boom with being able to go to town centers and then spamming all kinds of knights with your cheap stables. And then in the Castle Age, you have a technology called Steppe Husbandry. It increases the production speed of your steppe lancers, light cavalry line, and cavalry archers, but we're not going to consider those here because we're not putting cavalry archers in this tier list. But hey, being able to spam hussar at a higher rate of speed, fantastic. And they already move faster, so you can have a lot of hussar on the field. And having steppe lancers, I don't really know I haven't figured out the purpose of steppe lancers yet. I do think that at least I've seen Mongol steppe lancers be pretty effective against eagle warriors, but that's pretty specific. We'll talk more about that in a second. But if somebody can find a purpose for the steppe lancer, well, you're going to be able to at least get a lot of them with Cumans, and that's going to help you. All right. Next, we move on to the Ethiopians. Ethiopians are going to wind up in the D tier. You do get camels and hussars, but you're missing lots of upgrades. No last armor, no bloodlines. You don't really have a good bonus pushing you there. The Ethiopian economic bonus, in terms of getting cavalry out, is pretty marginal because cavalry are very expensive. So, easy D tier. Franks are an easy S tier. There's really no question about it. You have some of the strongest at different phases of the game. You just seems like you're always ahead of an opponent. If you look in Feudal Age, it's true you don't get bloodlines for Franks, but you do get plus 20% HP on your scouts, which means that as soon as you do your scout opening, you're going to have the strongest scouts in the field because they go from 45 to, I believe, 54 HP. That really helps you take those early fights. You have a very smooth economy with faster foragers and free farming upgrades. So your farms, you never have to worry about researching that. That means they're going to last. It's a very smooth bonus to pay for. Your Castle Age Knights are basically equivalent to other fully upgraded civilizations. And then your Cavaliers and Paladins are going to have extra HP. You have a unit like Throwing Axemen that can be a nice complement to help you deal with hand cannoneers. To help deal with halberdiers. You also have hand cannoneers of your own if you want to use those instead. That can be a little expensive. Throwing Axemen are probably a bit more cost-effective option because they cost less gold. You have the Chivalry technology, which can increase the production speed of your stables. I think it's by 40%, which that could be very good. The things about Franks that are maybe a bit more of a deficiency is that you Your scout line is pretty underwhelming. Your light cavalry, you do get all the upgrades. Obviously no bloodlines, but the 20% HP is only giving you 72 HP on your light cavalry. And when you think of a fully upgraded hussar has 95 HP, your light cavalry is not doing as well for the Franks. But having the chivalry technology and able to spam them all over the place is still pretty nice. Having all the pierce armor is helpful. So I don't think that's enough to bring the Franks down from the S tier into the A tier. Franks also get pretty bad skirmishers, so if you want to counter halberdiers, you kind of have to go with another gold costing unit, and that can be disappointing as well because knights are really your only power unit for the Franks. So, but we're not looking at the civilization as a whole. We're looking about how the civilization helps their cavalry, and Franks make it there. All right, next up we have the Goths, and now Goths may surprise you. They are going to go into the C tier. Look, you have fully upgraded knights and light cavalry in Castle Age, right? So your knights are perfectly usable. It's an Imperial Age, right? You miss out on Paladin, and you do get Hussar, but you miss the last armor upgrade. So your Imperial Cavaliers are not that good, and your Hussars, you can still use them as a raiding unit, but they're just not going to be as good as some of the other civilizations. You don't really have an eco bonus that helps you go cavalry. You do have hand cannoneers if you want to counter other halberdiers, but you should probably be making your own cheap halberdiers in that instance anyways. So I think that you can play knights. Goths do have some usage in playing fully upgraded scouts if you want to play a more extended feudal age, and fully upgraded knights. I think that's enough to put them in the C tier. All right, Huns. Right, Huns are going to go right into the S tier. Very good cavalry civilization. You get fully upgraded paladins, fully upgraded hussars. But the real thing that's giving you the advantage here is that you have faster working stables. That means that you can have more scouts in the field than your opponent in feudal age, more knights in the field than your opponent in Castle Age. And again, what's one of the things we talked about at the outset of this video? Choosing winnable fights. When you're playing with Huns, you can be pretty sure that unless you've fallen very far behind, you can have the numbers to be able to take those winnable fights. You have a great economy, not needing to build houses. That saves you wood that can go into farms. That saves you villager production time that can be going to whatever other resources you want. But then to put the icing on the cake, your unique unit, the Tarkin, in a 1v1 setting, can be a great power spike. It performs an Imperial Age very similar to a Cavalier. I think it loses to a Cavalier just barely 1v1. But the thing is that it has 8 Pierce Armor fully upgraded, 170 HP, and a bonus damage against buildings. And it's not that expensive to get into, and their Castle Age technology allows you to mass them from stables. So you can get them out in the field in early Imperial Age, and sometimes if you're up against an archer civilization, that can be a power spike that can prove very deadly for an opponent. So Tarkins definitely have their place, a very strong unit against archer civilizations, and so all of that is going to put Huns into the S tier. All right, Incas, right? No cavalry, F tier. Indians, I'm going to put Indians in the A tier. So Indians are kind of a tough one to judge. The Imperial Camel upgrade, which is unique to them, they can upgrade their heavy camel rider to an Imperial Camel, gives them an extra 20 HP, extra 2 base attack. That can be very strong. You have good economic bonuses with cheaper villagers and the Sultan technology that increases the gold you get from gold sources. And your Hussars are pretty good. Indians can be kind of tough to judge because you miss the last armor upgrade on your stable units, but you get a free Pierce Armor in Castle Age and Imperial Age respectively. And so what it means is that when you get to Imperial Age, right? Well, actually, let me start this way. When you are in Castle Age, your camels and your light cavalry are going to have one more Pierce Armor than their their generic complements of other civilizations. That can be very, very strong. Light cavalry can be very effective versus archers, and you can keep your camels alive against archers more easily. In Imperial Age, what it means is that you have the pierce armor of a generic civilization, right, that has plate barding armor, but you lack one melee armor. So that means your hussars will lose to other fully upgraded hussars. Your camels, if you don't research the Imperial camel, your camels will even lose to generic fully upgraded camels, such as, say, Turks or Tatars. And that can be pretty disappointing. An Imperial camel is an expensive upgrade. You do have pretty strong hand cannoneers. That can be helpful. But, the fact that you have to pay for this really expensive upgraded Imperial camel in order to get the stronger camel unit on the field, I don't know. That can be very tough. That can be very tough. And you're missing the entire knight line. And that's a really tough pill to swallow because, camels, look, you do have your team bonuses that they do extra damage against buildings. And that's nice, but it just doesn't make up for the raiding potential of a knight, to be honest with you. You really need to raid just with hussars. And that's fine, but it's very common, actually, that you see Indians having to switch to, say, something like cavalry archers. It's one of the most common units that it's one of the most common civilizations that plays cavalry archers, and I think that actually speaks more to what is ultimately a deficiency of their camel line. Actually, it's still very good. You still have very good camels, but it can be tricky to play against archer civilizations. Okay, Italians. I think we got to put them in the B tier, which kind of surprised me, but I would say hear me out on this, right? Yeah, fully upgraded Cavalier, fully upgraded Hussar, much like our, the partner to their side here in the Burmese. You have cheaper hand cannoneers to deal with Hussars. In terms of economic bonuses, I will say, at first blush, the Italians' economic bonus of needing minus 15% resources to get to the next age, right? I didn't think that would be as strong as it is, but actually, it really does help you with power spikes. It means basically you can kind of go up a villager earlier, and so being able to go up one villager earlier, say up to feudal age, can help you get an advantage in getting scouts out and, say, having more scouts to your opponent or taking map control. Getting up to castle age more quickly can really help you stay ahead in a night rush, and getting up to imperial age quickly, right? If you're going to stay on knights, it can help you get to cavalier more quickly. So, when you think about the phases of the game and how well the civilization can play, I think that gets them into the B tier. But other than that, you just don't really have anything else helping your cavalry line out. And so I think that there's a sharp differentiation between those A tier civilizations and a civilization like Italians. I'm going to hydrate for a second. All right. Hydrated, ready to go. Next up, we have the Japanese. Japanese, I'm going to put in the C tier, and I'm actually going to make a comparison here. So, you have fully upgraded Castle Age Knights, fully upgraded Castle Age Light Cavalry. You miss Hussar, you miss Paladin, and you miss the last armor upgrade. Now, compare this to the Britons, right? Britons and Japanese have the exact same military units from their stable. It's just that Japanese get bloodlines, miss the last armor upgrade, and Britons lack bloodlines, but get the last armor upgrade. And so what does that mean, right? Well, that means basically in a post-imperial setting, Japanese knights and light cavalry can take an extra melee hit than Britons, but Briton cavaliers and light cavalry can take an extra arrow hit. That tends to be the way that it plays out. Now, you might say, okay, well, that seems like a pretty marginal distinction. Why is Japanese in C tier? Why are Britons in the D tier? Well, it's because Japanese light cavalry and knights are fully upgraded in Castle Age. Britons aren't. So Japanese can actually compete in Castle Age, where with Britons, your light cavalry and your knights are going to have to be more situational because you lack bloodlines. So that, right, again, thinking about the game as it plays out through the ages is how you want to think about it. And so we can draw a distinction there between Japanese and Britons. Plus, I gotta say, the early game economic bonuses from Japanese having your resource camps cost minus 50% wood. You have a seriously underrated scout rush from Japanese. It's not at all uncommon to be able to do 19 pop. And I even think on the new King of the Desert 4 Arabia that is in the ladder right now. Shout out to MimTV, who has a great channel. Go follow him on Twitch, YouTube, wherever he's at. You can even do 18 pop scouts if you have, say, elephants available instead of boars. So, Japanese scout rush is also much stronger than, say, than anything that would be in the D tier, and even I think the other C tier civilizations here. So, but that's not enough to get them into B tier because in late game you have to switch off of at least Cavalier. Maybe you could play like Cavalry as a raiding unit, but it's still not going to be as strong as the B tier civilizations. All right. Next up, moving on, we have the Khmer. Khmer are going to find themselves squarely in the A tier. You have fully upgraded Cavaliers and Hussars, but really what's helping you out with Khmer... Oh, you also have elephants that are a bit faster, and that can be pretty strong too. Even though elephants are very expensive, and if the opponent sees that they're coming and makes monks, that can turn around and you pretty fast. The thing with Khmer is the fact that you don't need buildings in order to age up to feudal, castle, or imperial, and that means you can get some really fast, really aggressive timings, whether you're going to go for a scout rush or even a fast castle knight rush for that matter. And the fact that your farms, you don't have to drop the food off at a resource point, your villagers just collect it and deposit it immediately into your civilization's bank account, if that's what we want to think about it. Means that you farm faster, and that's a very amazing bonus in, really in feudal age, castle age, imperial age for keeping production sustained. So Khmer, easy A tier for me. All right, Koreans. Koreans, I gotta put them in the F tier, and I'm gonna do a little bit of a spoiler alert. They're the only non-American civ. We'll just go ahead and put mines in there. They're the only non-American civ that I'm gonna put here in the F tier. You're missing a lot. You don't have Blast Furnace. You don't have the last armor upgrade. No Bloodlines. I think you even miss Husbandry. I'm actually not sure about that one, but we're already really bad already. And there's no economic bonus to, say, bail you out of it and move you up into another tier. Korean Cavalry are just bad. I very, very rarely would I think about going for any of their stable units. All right. Next up, and seemingly at the exact other end of the spectrum here, we have Lithuanians, and Lithuanians to me are an easy S tier civilization. You start off with 150 food extra. That gives you a fantastic early game, and you do get paladins. You are missing Blast Furnace, but you have the bonus of collecting relics to increase the attack of your paladins and the lightest, which I'll talk about in a sec. So, if you get 2 relics with Lithuanians, your paladins are essentially fully upgraded. That's very good. You have a unique unit, the lightest, which is very cost effective. I think as of this patch, it's 70 food, 50 gold, and it has a really high attack, and it also ignores armor. It ignores melee armor, so you can do a lot of damage against enemy opponents with it. It's not as effective. It doesn't have a lot of pierce armor, so you don't want to use it against archers, but hey, you already have great paladins for that. You have access to the Winged Hussar unit, which has 9 base attack, so your attack is equivalent to a fully upgraded Hussar, but you also get 5 extra HP and a melee armor, and I think it's a +4 bonus against gunpowder. So Winged Hussar is a strong unit, and you get them with Lithuanians. Plus, you get really great trash units in your elite skirmishers and your halberdiers that are very quick. Your hand cannoneers are a great complement. And I would say some of the skirmishers, the fact that your skirmishers have 10 pierce armor with your Imperial Age upgrade, that means that one of the counter units you often see as a gold unit to knights is cavalry archers. So being able to have a Lithuanian skirmisher that can move faster and help them deal with cavalry archers is really, really important for the civilization. And so, yeah, Lithuanians are easy S tier. Now, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to stay in the S tier for the Magyars. Magyars, now, you're not really getting an economic bonus, but you do get some really nice power spikes with them, and you do get discounts to the scout line. Your scout line is minus 15% off. That very much helps you in Feudal Age. You get all of your attack upgrades for free, so from the jump in Feudal Age, you have a really powerful scout. In Castle Age, when you have knights on the field, you have +2 attack already. That helps out a lot as well. Your unique unit, the Magyar Hussar, is a very, very strong trash unit. It's basically the strongest light cavalry unit in the game. So yeah, even though you're missing out, I think on a pro level tier list, I'd put Magyars in the A tier because of the lack of an economic bonus. But for mid-elo, Magyars, to me, easy S tier. Alright, Malay. Malay are kind of an unusual one to think about. They're going to go into the D tier. So you miss even the Castle Age armor upgrade. You miss Hussar Paladin. So already we're looking in terms of performance at kind of an F tier civilization. You have your economic bonuses that you progress through the ages faster. At mid-elo levels, I think that this often hurts players more than it helps them because you don't have the resources to do what you want when you get to the age you get to. The thing that keeps Malay out of the F tier is you have really cheap battle elephants. And battle elephants are very expensive, so being able to get them on the cheap can enable Malay to do some very interesting moves with their cavalry. So I think that saves them from the F tier. But if you're not making battle elephants, then I don't know why you'd make any other stable unit. And that to me creates a marked distinction, say, between the C tier units, which can do things like play Castle Age Knights or play Castle Age Light Cavalry, for instance. You're not doing that with Malay. If the opponent sees stables, they know exactly what's coming. So you can have that scouted out really easily, and the battle elephants be prepared for. Okay, Malayans. Malayans are going to go into A tier. Malayans have a really good stable, actually. You're missing Blast Furnace. However, you have a technology in Imperial Age called Farimba, which gives +5 attack. So what it means is that compared to generic, fully upgraded Cavaliers, Camels, and Light Cavalry, you have +3 attack. That is pretty sizable, actually. And the fact that they are, for all intents and purposes, fully upgraded and have extra damage, really good. You have 2 decent economic bonuses. Your cheaper wood cost in your buildings. I think people are kind of split right now whether their gold bonus, that their gold lasts 30% longer, which was a very recent change, was a nerf or a buff. I think the way to think about it is for early aggression, it's kind of a nerf because you don't accumulate gold as quickly in Feudal Age to prepare for your mid game. But in late game, having a lot of gold left over to be able to keep spamming units like Cavaliers and Camels, that might be something to help change a game. If, say, you have a gold denied, you have gold piles that last longer, that's pretty good. The only thing with Malayans is that you do have to get to Farimba, but so you need a castle for it. But hey, your light cavalry, camels, and cavaliers are fully upgraded in Castle Age. So as long as you make sure you get a castle up sometime, late Castle Age, early Imperial Age, get Farimba, and then you're fine. So I don't think it doesn't play out as much of a disadvantage for them as it might for another civilization. Okay, Mongols. Mongols are going to go into the B tier. I think I mentioned them earlier. So the strength of Mongols is that, look, you have a top 3 scout opening with the faster consuming hunt and a +2 line of sight bonus on your scouts. Your light cavalry line and hussars get +30% HP. That's fantastic for their survivability and melee fighting especially. And you have a diverse stable at the Castle Age with knights, camels, steppe lancers with extra HP as well, right? So I think that's actually a pretty cost-effective unit against eagle warriors for the Mongols. Now, you're lacking the Imperial Age armor upgrade, and that is a pretty major drawback for your cavaliers and your camels. But for your hussars, the extra HP does help compensate it for it. I think you still are killed by arbalest more quickly than a fully upgraded like normal hussar, but at least it's at least you're competing at that level. So I think based on that, the flexibility and the really nice scout opening, really rewarding that early aggression, I think we got to put Mongols into the B tier. Though it's important to recognize that Imperial Age, if you want to go for that more heavy cavalry camel line, you're going to run into problems if you stay on that for too long. All right, next up we have the Persians. And Persians for me, I'm going to put them in the S tier. Uh, you have in the early game, you have an extra 50 food, 50 wood to start. That can help your scout opening a bit. Every little bit helps there. You have fully upgraded paladins, hussars, and camels. Your knights have an attack bonus against archers. Um, you have an economic bonus of your town centers work faster. So that can be a little bit of a curse in that it might cause you not to have the resources you want to make cavalry, but you can get full boomed quicker. And I think more importantly is it actually helps you get to the next age a little bit faster. And again, that can be very helpful. You have, as a complement to your army, you can remove the gold cost from crossbows with the commander and technology. And so you have crossbows that lack bracer and the arbalist upgrade, but that's it. So you have a really strong complementary unit in trash bows. And if Persians get to a unit comp where you have, say, Cavalier, Paladin, and Trash Bow, that can be very, very difficult for an opponent to deal with. You also get War Elephants, which I think technically are the strongest unit in the game, but again, they're pretty slow and can easily be countered with monks, and now that means that your opponent now has War Elephants, and again, that can turn on you pretty quickly. Hydrate for a moment. All right. Let's move on to the Poles. And the Poles, I got to put them into the A tier, right? Your unique mill, right, provides a nice bump to your farming. You basically front loads food you get on your farms when they're created, and that can allow you to mass scouts, mass knights. Your scouts also have a +1 attack against archer units, and that kind of falls under the radar, I think, which can be very helpful in feudal age. Your Castle Age technology removes 60% of the gold cost on your knights, and that means your knight line cost, after that tech, costs 60 food, 30 gold. It's basically the cost of a champion before supplies. That's very strong. Now, the thing about you have to have a castle, but the thing is that the Poles' economic bonus, because they have two of them, where by mining stone they generate gold, Poles can get to a castle actually pretty quickly because you can, if you're opening scouts, you can try a strategy of going to stone instead of gold to get the gold to get up to the castle age, right? To click up, and then you have a castle when you get there. So that's pretty strong, actually. You have winged hussars, right? But you are missing the last armor upgrade on your stable units, and so I'll talk about that in a sec. But your winged hussars are great, really good melee fighters, and you have your Imperial Age castle technology gives them trample damage, which can be really strong. They're probably the best melee fighting hussar in the game, and you have good complementary units. Your oboe from your castle is quite cheap, and it pairs really well because it scrapes the armor off of the units. So if you have oboes in there, you actually are increasing the damage that your other units can do to those units that the oboe has been attacking. So that's very good. It's really just missing the last armor upgrade. I actually think that Poles can play out, at least when it comes to playing cavalry, because Poles can play other strategies very well. But there is a similarity here in the Goths, where Goths kind of have a medium infantry that they just spam towards opponents. And I think if you're going to be playing cavalry with Poles, you are also playing a kind of medium cavalry style, where you're either spamming knights that are very cheap, but that lack that armor, so they don't have the durability, in the same way that Goths don't have the last infantry armor upgrade. Or you're spamming wing hussars and taking advantage of the farming bonus you get with the full work. So, but it can be a really overpowering civ if they get rolling, and so that's got to be an A tier. But I think missing the last armor upgrade puts them in the S tier, because if you get pressured early, you might not be able to get to that spam. All right, next up we have the Portuguese. Portuguese are they're going to go in the B tier as well. Look, you get fully upgraded light cavalry and cavalier. You are missing paladin and hussar, but the thing about Portuguese is you get a minus 20% gold discount on all your gold costing units, which means that in Castle Age you have a better gold discount than even the Berbers on your cavaliers, and that is quite good and can enable you to get to a pretty good mass. And go for double gold compositions in Castle Age. So Expo and Knights that can be very strong. I just don't think that it's, again, comparing it to Berbers, I just don't think it's quite as strong there, because you're missing camel, and the Berbers are also saving food. And in Castle Age, you generally have a decent bit of gold because you're just really getting your gold production started. And food is actually probably a bit more scarce of a commodity in Castle Age because you lack you lack the sheer number of farms, whereas in Imperial Age you probably have a lot of farms, and excuse me, and that's often when you need the gold. So you know, so later in the game, right, with Portuguese, and you want to keep making Cavalier, well, that it actually Portuguese might have an advantage there, but I think it ranks a little bit lower than the A tier civilizations there. All right, next up we have Saracens. I want to put Saracens in the C tier. Um, Fully upgraded camels, fully upgraded hussars. You have hand cannoneers as a complementary unit. Your market bonus can help you balance your economy a bit, and as a mid-elo player, that can be very helpful for doing that smoothly. Your camels have plus 10 HP just on the jump, and then I think it's their Imperial Age technology. It might be their Castle Age, that I forget, but you can get an extra 20 HP, so your camels have 170 HP. That's quite good. Now, the reason I'm putting them in the C tier is that you miss Cavaliers all stop, right? So you can only get Knights, and so, you just can't. It's really hard to in early Imperial Age, you're really hard pressed to just keep making Knights and go for that power spike and not being able to get Cavaliers. Whereas I think civilizations like Japanese and Goths, you can kind of get ahead. You can research Cavalier with them and take advantage of that power spike if you get kind of ahead and into game. You're going to have a lot harder time doing that with the Saracens. And for that, I just don't think you can put it into the B tier category. You do have fully upgraded Castle Age Knights, and that is nice. Saracens are one of the civilizations I've really struggled with here on this. You do have the Mamluk as a unique unit that has an attack bonus against cavalry. Ah, man, but it's so expensive to get to. I mean, it's really expensive to get to. I don't know, and it's very weak against archers. You know what? I'm going to keep Saracens in the C tier. But hey, if you disagree and you think that they should be in B tier, you know, you know, drop it in the comments below, and maybe you can come up with a better rationale for that than me. But I just don't think it moves the needle. I think missing Cavalier is too massive. When we look at the B tier, we either have fully upgraded Cavaliers or we have something else really pushing it, like with the Mongols having a great diversity of units, having really strong hussars. Saracens probably top of C tier. All right, Sicilians. Sicilians are going to go into the A tier. I think Sicilians are a borderline S tier civilization when it comes to their cavalry. You have the Halberd technology for your cavaliers, which are fully upgraded, giving them +1 melee, +2 pierce armor, which gives your cavaliers 8 pierce armor. I like to call them Jim Halbert Cavaliers. It's an office reference for you. Maybe we can get that going. But yeah, they're exceptionally strong against archer civilizations. And hey, and the extra melee armor means that they defeat other civilizations' fully upgraded cavaliers. So very strong. But it's not only that, but the Sicilian bonus of absorbing 50% of the bonus damage from units, that makes your that helps your scouts, it helps your knights, it helps your cavaliers, it helps your light cavalry, which is fully upgraded. You're just missing hussar. That is very strong. Um, Now, I will say that in Imperial Age, halberdiers can still be a threat just because the bonus damage is so high. They can still be quite cost effective, but Sicilian cavalry is still going to be doing pretty good. Um, the only thing keeping Sicilians out of S tier is that you just don't really have a bonus for the early game to really get you going economically. You have a generic Dark Age, and all the Sicilian eco bonuses really start to get their effect going during the transition to Castle Age because your farms, if you have the farming upgrade, last longer. And being able to put down town centers quickly is a fantastic bonus. But again, it's more of a Castle Age bonus. So yeah, I would say that there may be like we're probably talking B tier in maybe B plus tier in feudal age just because of your ability to deal with spearmen, and then an S tier in as late in the game. So Slavs are going to go into the A tier. You have great farm eco that can give Slavs a really overwhelming mid game with fully upgraded. You have fully upgraded Cavaliers in Imperial Age, fully upgraded Hussars. You can spam units like crazy. And I will say that the Boyar as a unique unit, aside from being perhaps the coolest looking unit in the game, I know some people think it's the Magyar Hussar, but I think I gotta give it up to the Boyar. It wields a giant battle axe on a horse. That's pretty freaking sweet. And but it has a lot of melee armor. It has good pierce armor. It's a strong unit, but you got to make it from a castle. It still dies to halberdiers. I don't think it's enough to make a move into the S tier because it's also quite expensive too. So, but all right, Slavs, I think easy A tier civilization. Next up, we have the Spanish, and Spanish are going to go. Spanish are going to go into the B tier for me. This might be a little controversial as well. I might have to think about this one for a second. So I have them in the B tier, but let's do the math on this. You get fully upgraded paladin, fully upgraded hussars. You do have a bonus to your blacksmith where your blacksmith techs don't cost gold. That might actually help with an Imperial Age power spike, getting your blast furnace and getting the last armor upgrade. And you do have fully upgraded trash units to complement. You know what? I've talked myself into it. Look, at a pro level, I think that not really having a good economic bonus takes them down to B tier. But again, this is a mid-ELO tier list. I think for mid-ELO cavalry gameplay, the blacksmith bonus probably helps you out enough because it can save you a decent bit of gold. And if you need to tech into, say, hussars late to counter something, you're just spending food. That's pretty good. You're only paying for the gold cost of researching hussar then. Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. Spanish, maybe the weakest of the A tier civilizations, but there is a marked difference between them and the B tier. Tatars. Tatars, I gotta put in the A tier as well, actually. And this may be a little surprising. You have longer lasting sheep, and you get sheep when you make a new town center. So it gives you a nice food bonus to crank out cavalry units. You have fully upgraded cavalier, fully upgraded camel. You probably have the best hussars in the game after you research silk armor in Castle Age, and it's not that difficult a technology to get to. It gives you +1 melee, +1 pierce armor. So fantastic hussars. And I think the thing that really takes us over the top here is you have the Keshik as a unique unit. Very affordable, 60 food, 40 gold, and as it attacks, it generates gold for you if it's attacking units. So, in practice, it's probably more like 60 food, 37 gold. People are freaking out about pole knights being 60 food and 30 gold after researching an upgrade. Keshiks are probably something like 60 food and, 35, 36 gold in practice. And, oh, by the way, they have 7 pierce armor. They have, I believe it's 11 attack, and I think it's 160 HP. So, it's a very durable unit for the cost that you pay. And, yeah, Tatar's got to be A tier for me. I think you're lacking a little bit of the strength to get you into the A tier, but still quite good. All right. Next up, we have the Teutons and Teutons. This is a tough one too. I think I gotta put Teutons in the A tier as well. The thing about Teutons is that, again, trying to think about how they play out during the game. You have a pretty generic scout rush. Your farms do cost less food. Excuse me, cost less wood to put down. I think it's minus 40%. So you can always get to your farms with Teutons. That's helpful for having a consistent scout rush. You do get bloodlines, but the thing with Teutons that's really helping you is that your stable and infantry units actually are getting +1 melee armor in each age respectively. So your knights in Castle Age are better than fully upgraded knights because you're getting all those upgrades and an extra melee armor. And your cavaliers are going to be the same, and you get paladins. I'd say the only thing really holding Teutons back, right? There's two things, right? Oh, I should say this. Teutons also have a conversion resistance against monks, and that is very helpful for keeping your knights alive and not getting converted and running away from monks. Now, Teutons get downgraded from the S tier into the A tier for two reasons. One, you don't even get the light cavalry line, so your scouts really start to fall off even with the extra melee armor, and you lack husbandry. So, Teutonic, right? The Teuton cavalry is just, it's very slow. It's too much schnitzel. The Teuton stable units have been eating, and we got slow horses out there. So that's going to keep them from S tier. All right, next up we have the Turks. You know what, Turks, I gotta put in the B tier. You get fully upgraded Cavalier, fully upgraded Camel, right? We're already talking pretty good. But you also get probably a top 3 Hussar. You get an extra Pierce armor from the very start of the game, and you get your light cavalry and Hussar upgrades for free. That's a lot of savings. You can get to great power spikes. You have really good hand cannoneers to complement that army, and you have a good gold bonus that can help you turbo into production. Now, where Turks tend to fall off is just the fact you lack pikemen and beyond and elite skirmishers, so you really don't have units to complement your cavaliers or camels, and you need to rely on double gold compositions to deal with, say, like halberdiers. The Hussar is great, though. I mean, Hussar is a really important part of your army, but I think it's more of a secondary role. You're probably going for hand cannoneers, janissary, or, and this would be actually my preference, heavy cavalry archers, because Turks get fantastic cavalry archers. You can take a look at that video, also in my tier list. But hey, look, I think you have, again, I think there's a distinct advantage here over the C tier civilizations. So, you got to put it in the B tier. All right. Next up is the Vietnamese. Vietnamese are going to wind up in the C tier. Your cavaliers and light cavalry line are missing blast furnace, but you do get all the armor upgrades, so that's good. Elephants, again, they're interesting, but it's very pricey. Your eco bonuses are more for the mid game, so it's not helping your scout rush out as much. You do have a nice lambing potential with your scout because you see enemy bases from the start of the game, the town centers. That's nice, but yeah, you're just missing that Imperial Age power. I mean, I think I think the elephants make this list kind of difficult to compare, but I think that the trick with elephants, and I'll put an asterisk on any civilization that has battle elephants, and the asterisk will is something like the following. If you can surprise people with the battle elephant switch, it can be very effective and very overwhelming. However, if your opponent scouts you out and sees it coming and gets, say, 3 or 4 monasteries down, and monks, or has pikemen, going battle elephants and investing all of those resources can be a game ender for you. So it's very all in, and that's tough. That's tough. And so, you can decide, hey, if you have thoughts on the battle elephant, maybe you think that I'm undervaluing them a bit, or maybe you think that I've got it just right. Feel free, again, leave a comment below. And finally, we've come to our last civilization here. We've come to the Vikings. Vikings are going to go into the D tier. You miss husbandry, lost armor upgrade, bloodlines, no paladin, no hussar. It's kind of awful, awful, awful. The only thing that keeps it in D tier is you just have such a fantastic economy with free wheelbarrow, free handcart. Viking Night Rush in early Castle Age, don't sleep on it because they can crank out knights probably from more stables than you can. And if they get a numbers advantage, that can be pretty difficult. I mean, fortunately, they like husbandry, so you can run away if you need to. But you can only wait. You can only run away for so long in Age of Empires, and so eventually you have to fight. So that's a D tier. And hey, eventually tier list videos have to end. This one, I think we have surpassed the 1 hour mark, so this is a pretty long one. But with 39 civilizations and really giving you the explanation for the thought process, to me, I think it's worth the time. And hey, 1 hour and 10 minutes, that's a nice solid workout at the gym. So, I would say, listen to this tier list in my melodious tones to, improve your fitness efficiency in the gym if you got me on your headphones. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead in the tier list here. Again, if you've made it this far, I'm happy that you stuck with it. And if you like the video, again, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll be doing a lot more of these in the future. So we're gonna keep this party going. And with that, I will see you out there on the ladder. All right, peace.